What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds bbq. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I'm going to show you how I made this beautiful, delicious, smoky, beefy beef tri-tip, cooked two ways. One as a steak, and the other as a roast. Coming up! When it comes to regional styles of barbecue, you've got your Texas style, Carolina, Kansas City, the list goes on. And if you make your way out west old California way, you're gonna run into what's known as Santa Maria style barbecue, where tri-tip is king. Tri-tip is a triangular shaped roast from the sirloin section that is typically cooked over coals or live fire to a nice medium rare, sliced against the grain for some delicious tender meat. That being said, today I'm gonna show you my two favorite ways to cook a tri-tip, and it is going to be delicious. This is a tri-tip, a USDA prime tri-tip that I picked up at my local grocery store. Don't see these too often, but whenever I do, I tend to pick them up. So they call it a tri-tip because 1, 2, 3, it's got 3 tips on it. And this one's great because it's still got the fat cap on top, which is something I'm always looking for. Oftentimes they won't have that on there, which is fine depending on how you're gonna cook it, but having a little extra fat on top, especially on a sirloin cut, is always a good thing. But right now I'm just gonna go around and kind of clean it up a little bit, get all these stray edges taken care of. Kind of a gnarly looking tri-tip. Also, if there's any silver skin or anything on the back here, just gonna go around and make it look a little bit more pretty. If you were just gonna throw this on your smoker, cook it to medium rare and slice in, you may want to take that fat cap off, and that's because bringing this up to a medium rare temperature is not going to take very long, and you're probably not going to be able to render that fat, unlike something like a brisket or something where you're going to cook it for hours and hours and give that fat plenty of time to liquefy. But I have full intentions on giving this a nice sear at the end, which will crisp that fat up and make everything super tasty. That being said, though, this is a pretty tall fat cap, so I might go through and take it down a little bit. Got some really nice marbling in that meat, though. And this is a great cut for feeding a crowd, too, because it's big, it cooks quickly, and it's got very uneven size. So this end is very likely going to be a lot more well done than this side. So if you got picky eaters or people with different tastes for their meat doneness, this is a great cut for that. And there we have it. Beautiful looking tri-tip. Well, as beautiful as we're going to get it. Sometimes there's some slices that come in there that you can't avoid. One thing to note while it's raw is the grain structure. This is what everyone's always talking about with tri-tip, because it's very important to cut it against the grain when it's done cooking. Otherwise, you're going to end up with some really chewy meat. So if you look at it, the grain structure on this side is running this way. So we're going to want to slice like that. But then once you get to about right here, the grain structure changes and starts going this way, which is why it's sometimes referred to as the California brisket, because it's got grains going in different directions, and it's the beef choice of the region. So if you've never cooked one of these before, a great tip is to just take a picture of this while it's raw. That way you can look at it once it's done and get a really clear image of where the grains change, so you can slice it and cut it this way and cut it this way. As for seasonings, you can do pretty much whatever you want. This is a roast or a steak. Any rib you've got is gonna be real tasty. But for me, I'm gonna go pretty simple, just like the ribeye we did the other week. We're gonna go with salt and pepper, starting with the salt. Just gonna give it a nice heavy coating and let it sit for a few hours while we get the smoker fired up, because on a thick piece of meat like this, you really wanna allow time for that salt to penetrate into the meat so we get flavor in every bite. Make sure we get every side, and we are just gonna let this sit probably right out here until we're ready to throw it on the pit, because it's still about 30 degrees out here, probably a little colder than my fridge, so no need to pop it in the refrigerator. For tri-tip number 2, I have got a beautiful Wagyu tri-tip right here. Cryovac broke on this one, so it got a little oxidized, but I know it's still gonna be delicious. Beauty of Wagyu, though, is that we've got some really nice intramuscular fat on there. And cuts like this is where Wagyu really shines, because a prime ribeye is gonna be fatty no matter what you do, and Wagyu ribeye is just gonna be ridiculously fatty. So whenever I buy Wagyu, I really like to get these leaner cuts, whether it's a picanha or a tri-tip or a tenderloin or something that's usually pretty lean. That's where Wagyu really makes a big difference. But for this one, what we're gonna do is cut it into individual steaks. And the thought process behind that is whenever I get a picanha, which is another sirloin roast, I enjoy it a lot better if it's cut into individual steaks and seared that way, as opposed to cooked as a whole roast. So I figure the same principles ought to work with a tri-tip. So what we're gonna do is cut this with the grain into individual steaks. So starting right where these grains kind of switch, which is right on this line right here, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that through nice and clean. And then following the grain going this way, I'm gonna cut this into some pretty thick steaks. Beautiful. And that's what we got. Some beautiful marbling on there. As you can see, the grain's going this way, so when it's all said and done, we can cut it this way against the grain for that perfect bite with a nice fat cap on every single bite. If we cut it the other way, one slice would be all fat, the rest would be lean, and that's not what we're after. But that is some beautiful looking tri-tip steak right there. And so this side, we're gonna do the same thing, going with the grain as much as we can. So there we have it, some beautiful steaks. This one's gonna be a little weird, but the rest of these are gonna be super tasty. And again, I'm just gonna go at these with a little bit of salt, get that dry brine started, so we have some nice seasoning in every bite. And always get all sides, folks. Beautiful. Now we're just gonna let these sit alongside the other one here, let that salt do its thing while we get the smoker fired up. I don't know, I don't think I'm gonna fire this one up today. Luckily, I've got a few more to choose from up front. Ooh. This is why I left New Hampshire. Didn't have to do this anymore. Yet here we are. I always wondered how a 115 would cook in the snow. Got that insulated firebox on there, but never had the conditions to test it out. Today's the day. Oh, Jesus. I actually didn't do that one on purpose. Look at the size of that thing. How are you even supposed to do it? John, did you call the cops?
Yeah.
Why?
There was a snake in my boot.
Nice and toasty. While we wait for our smoker to come up to temp, let's finish seasoning off these here tri-tips, starting with the big boy. For this whole tri-tip, we're gonna hit it with a little bit of oil. This is some avocado oil, and that's just gonna help everything stick. Same procedure as in the tomahawk ribeye. Make it a little tacky, just to make sure nothing falls off, because the last thing we want is that oil to warm up and drop off, taking some of the seasonings with it. Then we're gonna hit it with some 16 mesh black pepper. Oh, very nice. And then we're gonna go on with a little garlic powder as well. If the roads weren't shut down, I very well may have gotten some fresh garlic, but today we're going with some granulated. Never forget the sides, folks. As for these, we're gonna keep them just the way they are, just salt. We're gonna treat them just like a picanha steak, and they're gonna be super tender and delicious. We're really gonna be able to taste the flavor of that Wagyu beef. As you can see, we're rocking a solid 350 on this here 115. I put an extra log in there thinking that it was gonna be a little hindered by the snowstorm, but seems to be cooking along great. So we're gonna let it cool down a little bit, let those logs burn down. Insulated firebox is working great, but we're aiming for a temperature of around 300, maybe 275, and we're gonna cook this tri-tip to an internal temperature of about 120 degrees. And just like anything else, you can lower this temperature down to 250 if you wanted a real smoky tri-tip. Raise it higher if you want to get the job done faster. But I'm going to keep it right where it is, right around 275, 300 degrees. Aim the thick end towards the fire. Put it pretty far back so we don't get any flames toasting the front end too much. And we're going to let this rock for the next little bit. As y'all may be aware, we had a bit of an Arctic storm here in Austin the last few days. Here at Casa de Chud, we went about 3 days with no power, came back for a little bit, and then we immediately lost water. We're still waiting on water to come back, but luckily we got plenty of other beverages. Big John here. You've been without power and water for what, 4 days?
Something like that.
How's it going for you?
I'm in the Chud house.
Right? We got plenty of meat. Got a big freezer back there full of meat. Got plenty of cookers, plenty of wood, so we're in good spirits. It's cold. Funny thing is, we're both from New Hampshire. We should be used to this kind of stuff. But, you know, there's no salt on the roads. There's no infrastructure for it, so the whole world has shut down. But I'm not too worried about it, because we got some tri-tips to eat. And the chudsicle is getting bigger by the day. Where's Cockburn? We got to make a cocktail with that thing in it. Nice and toasty. After about an hour and a half, this little guy is looking real nice. Right around 125 degrees internal temp. We've got some nice smoke on there. Cook that pepper on real nice. Help that fat render down. So we're gonna pull it off and let it rest. The carryover will probably bring it up to around 130, and then it'll come back down so we can sear it nice and hot without any risk of overcooking. While our full tri-tip roast is resting, let's go ahead and throw on our Wagyu tri-tip steaks. Again, these are just salted only, a little bit of pepper on there from the board, but that's okay. And we're just gonna grill these like any normal steak. We're gonna flip them constantly to make sure they don't get too cooked on one side. Other than that, we're just gonna cook them to a nice internal temp of around 120, 125, and then we'll let them rest. They'll carry over to internal temp of about 130, which is right where we want it to be. I tell you what, there's nothing better than doing some nice grilling on a toasty grill while there's snow on the ground. Nice chill weather. Come on. Telling you, if you ever see a tri-tip in a store, pick it up, turn it into steaks. Does that sizzle shot ever get old? I don't think so. And now for the big boy. Time to get a nice crust on this. Render down that fat cap. Although I got to admit, that does look pretty good right off the bat. But a little extra sear can't hurt anybody. Careful on that fat cap, boys. That's the way I like it. Trying to mimic that Texas style bark right there. Yes, please. Look at that pile of meat. Again, pardon the paper plates. Sink is down, dishwasher is down. But I think it's just about time to see how all of these little steaky poos came out. Starting with, this one's looking pretty good. And again, you can pretty clearly see the grain running this way on that, which is why we sliced it that way. So when we go against the grain, we get some beautiful steak pieces. Oh, it's so tender. Oh, it smells so good. And we've got a beautiful medium rare, which is fine with me. That's why I love these in steak form. They're just so steaky. Oh, that is delicious. Oh my God, it's so beefy, so juicy. Got those big muscle fibers in there. Like, look at that. Come on, what more do you need? Now this is the Wagyu one, so it's just salt, and it's got more than enough flavor. California, I tell you what, you know what's up. So good. All right, I think it's time to see how this roast came out. Again, we're trying to look for the muscle fibers here, and as you can see them pretty clearly running this way to right about and then this way from there. So we're going to terminate that right about there. Which should give us a beautiful cross section of some delicious medium rare beef. So we're going to go the opposite, meaning just like this. It's got a nice crust on top. It's so good, so juicy. What more do you need than that? Unbelievable flavor. Tell you what, you can go with just salt. This stuff, phenomenal. But with the pepper and garlic, it's just even better. You can't go wrong. If you never tried this before, you really gotta give it a shot. All right, y'all, we got a tri-tip feast on our hands here. We got the beautiful tri-tip roast. Let me cut up a few fresh slices for you. Beautiful. And I want y'all to tell me which one you like better. Have at it.
I like the roast. I think it's,
I feel like I'm gonna like that one the best too. I had that one just then.
It's bigger cut of meat.
Yeah.
They're both great.
Ooh. Tell you what, this is a great way to wake up from a nap.
That like fat cap on there. Oh.
No. They're both good. They're kind of completely different though, because this one's got a much better crust on it.
It is crusty.
Where this one's a lot more tender. It's kind of like ribeye versus prime rib, which is actually exactly what it's like. You know what I mean? Cook it as a roast or cut it up into steaks.
It's so good.
Yeah.
This is one of the better tri-tips I've cooked. I gotta say, it's delicious.
Girl. It'll be good.
I did tri-tip sandwich all day long. Man, I tell you what, Big John, I was not planning on making this video, but because all the stores are closed, I couldn't get any of the things I needed for the jalapeno cheese sausage video I was going to make. It's pretty convenient that I had 2 tri-tips in the freezer, right? Alright y'all, and that is it. That is how I like to cook beef tri-tip. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Helps the channel grow. And again, I highly recommend giving this cut a try if you've never tried it before, because it's great no matter how you cook it. Hot and fast, slow and slow, roast form, cut up into steaks, fancy rubs, salt and pepper, just salt. It always comes out super tasty, and you really can't go wrong. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below what you want to see me cook next. Head over to chudsbbq.com for all things Chud Pit 115 and all the other pits I make. If you cook this for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds bbq. I love to see what y'all are cooking. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace!